course that I taught when I was at UCLA. But I mean, the department itself that I taught in and that I did my PhD research in, we were kind of known at UCLA as like one of the easy departments, quote unquote, just because we offered a lot of gen ed courses that were funky, that were designed in a certain way that dealt with art and the humanities and stuff like that.
Right.
We had a lot of, in fact, most student athletes at UCLA made their way through that class or those set of classes.
Right.
So yeah, no, I had a ton of student athletes, a number of them who are now professional athletes in one sport or another.
Yeah, like Kevin Love, maybe.
Kevin Love did not. He was. He took a class in my department, but it wasn't one that I taught. But he did. A couple of the other, like my students now, I have a number of them. Not all of them were as good as Russ, as a basketball player or as a student, really, to be quite honest. Kyle Anderson now plays with the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
Norman Powell now plays with the Toronto Raptors. Who else did I have? Malcolm Lee. He just got cut from the Timberwolves a year or two ago, but he was there. Darren Collison.
Yeah.
He was actually in that masculinities course with Russell Westbrook. Who else? A number of the, and then football players. A number of women's soccer players who are now like really big name. Carl Lang, who just retired from the Canadian women's national team. Sydney Leroux, who was on the U.S. women's team. Lauren Cheney, who is now married to Drew Holiday, the basketball player. Yeah. She was there, and she's like a superstar in terms of women's soccer. So yeah, we had but it's UCLA. Yeah. I mean, it's a sports school, So yeah, we had a.
That's awesome. You're just name dropping people.
Well, I mean, they're students. You know what I mean? It's not name dropping.
No, it's just really cool.
You get a ton of students, and it's one of the things that I miss about when I took this position is that, teaching in Barrett, we don't have a whole lot of student athletes who are honors college students.
Right.
Which is sad because I really enjoy teaching student athletes. Because as an artist, there's a lot of parallels between the way people like dance or theater or anything. You practice, you rehearse day in, day out in order to be the top of your field, you know what I mean? And that's exactly what athletes do. So like the correlations between teaching artists and athletes to me has always been like a very fruitful conversation.
Yeah. And then Westbrook's huge into the fashion stuff.
I know. He wasn't that way, when he was at UCLA, though. I don't really remember him being that way. He was like a lot of other student athletes in that they kind of just show up in their Adidas UCLA gear, same thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just, but that's part of what they're supposed to be doing that too, is they're trying to sell the Adidas brand. I mean, that's part of the whole like student athlete phenomenon is that they do all of this work but don't get any pay.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so my first question is just going to be, what was it like to teach Russell Westbrook?
I mean, you don't really think about anything when they're in class. That said, I do recall him being present every day, which was more than like a lot of his other teammates or fellow student athletes can say, and I don't want to say, who didn't show up. I'm not going to name drop that way to put people on blast, but, he did, I remember taking stock of the fact that, like, he was at least there in class. He didn't miss classes. He was there. By and large, he participated in class discussions. Like, he seemed like a pretty legit student athlete, somebody who actually was a student athlete as opposed to athlete student. I really got the sense that he was there to try and learn, which that did stick out. I would say that stuck out to me more than anything else. But when he was in that class, I think that was his second year, so he would have been a sophomore, and I certainly didn't think that he was going to be where he's at now, you know what I mean?
Right.
In fact, I remember watching him play because I had, tickets to go to the UCLA basketball games, and I went quite a bit. And he was good, but there was nothing about him his sophomore year at UCLA that I would have been like, oh, he's going to be good in the NBA. I was like, oh, he'll probably get drafted and then muck around in the NBA like a bunch of other people, but there was no telling that he had that potential. I didn't see it. I mean, obviously NBA scouts did, but...
Yeah, no, I remember during the draft, they were, like, the Thunder GM was kind of, like, put on blast for drafting him so high.
Because he wasn't even the best player at UCLA at that time.
No, Kevin Love.
Kevin Love was, and our main point guard at that time was Darren Collison.
Yeah,
and
he was a combo guard, like 1-2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Russ played the 2, and he didn't really... I don't even remember him having that many minutes. I mean, the thing that stuck out to me about his game... now we're not talking about him as a student, but as his game. The thing that stuck out to me about his game, though, was that he was such an athlete. You know, his dunks in the pregame warm-ups, even in college, were just sick. It was just sick to watch him. He had so much bounce, but there was never a skill set around anything else that gave me the assumption that he would break the friggin', triple-double record. There was nothing there.
Do you think that he was such a good student-athlete in part because he wasn't really seen until his senior year of high school? He didn't grow, he didn't dunk until his senior year. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, all he did, according to, like, multiple stories I read, is, like, play basketball, study, and work out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's probably it, because, to be honest, the other players who were in classes that I taught, they came into the UCLA program as people who were considered to be, that person's going to be one and done. And so they're not there really thinking about getting an education. And that could be it, that Russell came in maybe not with the assumptions that he was just going to go to the NBA, that he developed so quickly. I think probably that's the case because a lot of student athletes who are good students are also generally not the student athletes who are great athletes. The ones who are at the top of their field, who are going to go into the NFL or NBA, are by and large people who will show up to do the work maybe half the time, and then the rest of the time they're getting excused absences from the personal trainers or from, sports administrators or what have you. That it could be the fact that he developed so late that he did have a concentration on class, like much more so than a lot of other people, for sure.
What was his personality like in class? Is it similar to maybe like on the court?
No. Well, I don't know, because now, he's kind of developed a personality in the NBA too. His first couple years, I would say, he was kind of quiet and timid. And that was certainly the way he was in class. Like, he wasn't a standout in class. That's why it's so funny to kind of talk about him as a student, because there wasn't anything that was like, that really stood out about him. He was very quiet. I mean, he did all the work. He participated in group discussions and stuff like that, but he didn't have a large personality, I would say. Right. He seemed very much to keep to himself. That said, I remember that a lot of other students liked him, and it could be because they knew that he was a basketball player and stuff like that, and there's always that kind of thrill about dating somebody, or not dating, but being in a class with somebody who's on the basketball team, who you can watch on ESPN and stuff like that. So I think that other students really appreciated him. Like, he probably had more of a personality among them than he ever did in terms of me reading it as a teacher or anything like that.
Okay. So I'm going to read a clip from a feature on him around the beginning of the year. So this is from ESPN.com. It said, the Sonics, soon to be the Thunder, request a private workout. They have the 4th pick. None of it seems real. Presti and a couple other players, personnel, make the trip to the gym in Los Angeles. They're sitting in the parking lot 30 minutes before the workout, wondering where you are, Russell. You've been sitting in your car for the past 45 minutes, not more than 20 feet away, studying for exams and wondering when they're going to open the gym. So, what do you think that has to say? I mean, he's being worked out by the number 4 pick for the draft, and he's still studying.
And he's working, yeah. That makes total sense, because, and in fact, I think when he was in that class I taught, I think that was his second year, and then he went to the draft, and that class was in the spring of that particular academic year. So that would have been about the time that they would have been working people out. So yeah, that totally makes sense. It would have just been a continuation of the person that he already was, which is somebody who like at least gave a passing glance and some real heft into the idea that you're in college to study also, that it's not just there to get a shoe deal and get drafted. That like, no, I could totally see that him doing that. That makes total sense, actually.
So what do you think about his competitive drive? Do you think he wants to be good, win and like be good at everything that he does, kind of like studying for exams and everything like that?
Yeah, he does strike me as somebody who is like that. That he, and that's kind of a rare talent. That somebody who wants to excel in literally every field that they're attached to. Even you mentioned earlier with fashion, like he's trying to be as fashion forward in the NBA as anybody else. He's trying to be the best basketball player in the NBA, not just be good, not just be the best on his team. And also with regards to the triple-double, I mean, like he is that multifaceted. Like it's an extension of his strength to kind of pursue the best in every realm. I could totally understand that.
Did you ever think that someone would break Oscar Robertson's?
No. I was just talking to some friends about that. Like, I'm a pretty big basketball head. And there are certain records that you just think are never going to fall. Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points is certainly up there. Like, it's just hard to fathom anybody coming close. Oscar Robertson's record, I think, was probably number 2 behind Wilt. In terms of how I'm picturing that record, I never thought anyone would even come close. So it's just unfathomable. I don't know that, in fact, because there's a lot of talk about it. It's been on ESPN certainly over the last couple months as he's gotten closer to it. But really, it should be talked to. Everybody should be talking about this, whether or not you're a basketball fan or not. Like, that's how significant that record is. To do that, people who follow baseball should be impressed by this. People who follow any sports, I think, should be impressed by this because that's how. I mean, it's just of that level. Nobody thought that it was going to fall, and I've been following basketball for I'm 37 now, so 35 years.
Yeah.
Like there's just one of those things. Never thought anyone was going to do it, let alone him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, someone that's. 6'3"?
Yeah.
6'4" maybe.
Yeah, and in the modern NBA, you can't really put up numbers like that.
Yeah, there was a stat that I didn't believe at all when I saw it, but it just named great centers, and they're like these centers have never averaged 30 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
So Shaq, it was long. Shaq was the one that struck me the most.
Yeah.
Last person to do 30 and 10 was the Karl Malone in 89-90.
Oh, yeah. In 89-90, oh,
Yeah.
wow. Not even, during his heyday in the 90s. That's interesting.
Michael Jordan didn't. I'm, pretty positive. And, before that, I mean, Wilt, Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
It's just nobody... That's just something nobody's done, really.
No, and that's kind of what's so fascinating about it is that during, Oscar's day, Wilt's day, the Celtic days, you had a number of premier players, but then really a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The NBA now is so full of talent and so full of so many good teams. I mean, they're all primarily in the West. That's the other thing. Is not that he just did it in the NBA; it's that he did it in the Western Conference, and I think that has special meaning too. That's the toughest conference in the NBA.
Right.
To put up those numbers coming out of that conference is remarkable.
What do you think about him doing it after Kevin Durant left, though? Do you think that's kind of a statement, maybe?
I think so. I certainly think so. You can kind of get the sense, when you watch that one matchup head-to-head with Golden State this year where they were kind of jawing at each other, you can tell he's got that competitive fire, that he wants to be better than Durant was as Durant led that team.
Right.
I think that's got to be it. As a basketball player, as an athlete, you need something to motivate you. That's got to be it. I don't think he puts up those numbers just to say, hey, I put up those numbers. I think it's to say, hey, I was always the best person on this team.
Right. Going back to the triple-doubles, what do you think is more impressive, the amount of triple-doubles or averaging it throughout a whole season?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I think the amount of triple doubles, because you could average it and get close every night but not do it. I think to be able to do it, 42 in how many? 82 games.
82 games. That's more
That's
than
like
half.
every
Yeah.
other game you're putting up a triple. That's just incredible. That's just incredible. That to me is like, yeah.
Were you surprised when Kevin Durant left this summer?
Oh yeah. No, I was certainly among those people who was both surprised and then immediately angered, for sure.
Yeah.
Just because I hate seeing teams stacked, when that happened with the Heat, a number of years back, I felt like when it happened with the Celtics in the mid 2000s, I felt the same way. I just hate seeing that. I like competitive basketball.
Yeah, same. I was really mad at LeBron because growing up, you hear LeBron and then hometown hero, and I'm from El Paso. I don't have a basketball team. We have UTEP, Texas Western.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, with Don Haskins in 1966. But yeah, it just the fact that he turned his back and everything that really struck me.
Oh
hard.
yeah, no, I was surprised. There was a lot of rumbling, and I was like, oh, he's probably going to hold out and see what kind of deal he can get. I never thought that he would talk seriously, and then I never in a million years would have thought that he would have gone with the Warriors, the team that I don't know. That's just it's so weird. At least when LeBron did it, he didn't, he was battling the Celtics for years as part of the Cavs or the Detroit Pistons, but he didn't go to one of those teams. He went to Miami. It was just not your rival. OKC and Golden State for the past couple of years have been real rivals.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know. It was kind of weird that he was friends with them. I always thought that was weird, watching, why are you friends with the one team that you can't really beat?
Uh-huh.
Anyways, here's Enes Kanter.
Oh, yeah.
Wrote a Players Tribune article about Russell Westbrook a few days ago. I don't know if you read it, but he said, this was one of the lines, because what Russ has done this year is so amazing. To me, it isn't just that he has made our team better. It's more that he made our team more Russer. Yeah, so Kanter went on to say that they play with an extra edge, and that the edge has continued through the team and into the city, and that they all kind of want to prove everybody wrong. And he said Russ has put an entire city on his back. What do you think about the impact he has had in Oklahoma City?
It's huge. I actually have, a girlfriend who all of her family's from OKC. And they are not basketball fans at all. Did not grow up playing basketball or anything. But this year, they're following every single game, and it's because of Russell Westbrook. It's because he literally has put the team and the city on his back, and I think people from OKC realize that. I mean, just using her family as an example, these are people who don't follow sports, and they're actively sitting in front of their television to watch these games.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay, so do you feel kind of torn in the MVP race because, ASU, UCLA?
No, I feel no... But I don't feel anchored to ASU yet. This is only my second year here.
Right.
So, and I also am not a big fan of James Harden. It's hard for me to watch him play because he flops so much, and that's just a personal pet peeve as somebody who loves playing great defense, as a basketball player myself.
Yeah. That
somebody who flops and tries to sell calls all the time, I just can't stand it. Him, Manu Ginobili, Vlade Divac back in the day, that's just, I can't get behind that. So I don't feel torn at all. I understand that other people may be rooting for Harden here on campus because he's got the ASU roots, but no, I'm really, because I taught for so long and did my PhD at UCLA and lived in LA for 7 years, my heart's with UCLA. That's a very easy decision for me.
Yeah, so you're pretty certain that Russell Westbrook's the MVP.
He's got to.
Do you think that...
And it doesn't even hinge on whether or not he wins in the playoffs against James Harden. I really don't think that matters. I think that he'll get it anyway.
So you think that he's going to win it?
I think so.
Okay.
It might be a close vote, but I think that he'll win it.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone would not vote for him.
I don't know either, but I mean, you go on like social media, you see all the people and their comments, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really frustrating for me to see anybody say that he isn't.
Yeah.
Or what really made me mad was at the end of the year when Russell Westbrook gets to like 41 or so,
Mm-hmm.
and he hits like 2 game winners, like a 50-point triple double, and then people are like, yeah, well, like now we have to give it to him. Like I changed my mind. Like he was doing this the whole season.
Yeah, I think that's it. Is that you know, whatever metric you use to measure the MVP, I think he's got it tied up. If it's just the numbers, his numbers are better than anybody's. If it's who's the most valuable player in terms of valuable to your team in particular, I think it's still him. You take away Russ off of OKC, they're nothing. And certainly the same could be said of Harden, but they have enough players around that they would still be fairly competitive. I don't think OKC is competitive one bit without him.
Yeah, just the numbers when he's off the floor, they're like -10.
Yeah.
And with him on the floor, they're like +2.
Yeah.
Which isn't very good because like Harden is like +8 and then +6 without.
Yeah.
But I mean, that just kind of goes to show like the role players, I guess.
Yeah. And he's also most valuable in the kind of cultural impact. Again, thinking of like people who are watching basketball now to just watch him play, to watch him try and reach this record.
Right.
It was crazy to go to the Suns game because I bought a ticket knowing that like he could break the record that night,
Yeah.
and he didn't. But it was a sold out arena, and I don't know if you go to very many Suns
Yeah.
games. It's not anywhere close to being sold out. He
Right.
sold out this arena, and there were hometown Phoenix Suns fans who were actively rooting for him to break that record.
Yeah.
So he's valuable in terms of just he brings value to every city he travels to. James Harden doesn't sell out that arena,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I was at that game and I was at the very, very back, like literally the last possible seat, last row. And usually when I go, I do like the student discounts or whatever, and I'll pay more to sit closer. It's like Paul George, I was like 3 seats away, like 3 rows back. Kevin Durant, like 6 rows back with the Warriors, and I mean, that's the farthest I've ever seen back, and probably paid nearly that's the game I paid the most money to watch too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody was yelling and pissed. And
It was a special game. I mean, I was really upset that he didn't get it, but everybody in the crowd seemed to be on the edge of their seat for it. You know? Like, because of that, like, I can't remember a time where that's happened. You know? Like, LeBron will sell out a stadium because he's LeBron. But not always.
Yeah.
Like, in the last month, Russ, everywhere that OKC goes, they're selling out. And they shouldn't because they're not that good of a team. But
Right.
he's that amazing. So just for that reason alone, he needs to win MVP.
Yeah, MVP chance almost anywhere he goes.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not in Houston or somewhere more competitive.
Sure.
But basically everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you already said that you don't think that the first round, even if they lose or get swept by the Rockets, will have any sway on the media?
No.
Okay. I've been a little worried about that affecting it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. In an email that you sent to your students before that game, I don't know exactly what you said, but it was something like...
Oh, shit. You heard about this email.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember what I said. It was something to the effect of, because we had a Barrett event that night specifically. So I told students, see you there, I'll be there early because I'm going to watch my former student Russell Westbrook break this record.
Right.
Don't worry, I'll be there when each of you does something amazing too.
Right.
Which is true, you know, like in the past, like I have a number of amazing students who, like, I try and show up when they're doing amazing things, or I'll drop them a line on Facebook or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think any of your students will accomplish something as historic as Russ is doing right now?
Yeah, I do. Actually, it's just a different metric, right? Because they're not going to be competitive athletes.
Right.
But I have a sense that there are people in that classroom, just to speak about journalism, I have a feeling that there are people in my classroom, both this year and last year, who are going to go on to be fantastic journalists, who are going to blow the lid off of some story that's going to make a real impact for humanity, for the nation, for however you measure it. I feel like we do have that kind of people within Cronkite, and we also have the people who are in Barrett who are in Cronkite, I think specifically, are the type who are going to go on to like do amazing fucking work. I really do. That's not even just to blow smoke up their ass. I really do. I think that's what they're capable of, and that's also what I'm trying to groom them to, is that they keep their eye on the ball so that they're constantly thinking about not just getting a job, but beyond that. Like, how do you transform society? That has to be that has to literally be the goal for educators. And I think that's the goal among all the faculty here. I mean, there's only a couple of us, but we're trying to get students in the mindset to where they're going out in order to specifically transform society. So in that sense, I absolutely do. Because that's what Russ is doing. He's transforming his world. The MBA is going to look different because of what he's brought to it. Journalism is going to look different because of what some of these students bring to it.
Okay.
I really believe that.
I'm out of questions, but is there anything you want to keep talking about? I mean, I could like talk about them all day, honestly.
No, that's good, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I don't really get a chance to sit down and talk sports very often.